Coming up on Mountain Hermeneutics, is aggressive Islamic expansion in the West good news? Is this even happening? And should we worry about it? We got a take, definitely. So keep it right here. You're listening to Mount Hermeneutics, where three Marines give their perspective on God, faith, and spirituality with a heavy lean on the divine council worldview. This is not your grandma's Sunday school, nor is it always for the Christian faint of heart. Nothing about who we are or what we say make us experts. But you better believe we'll have a take, and perhaps it won't suck.
Yeah, but sometimes we're only being wrong for amusement purposes. Sometimes the heresy is just for giggles.
Nothing funny about heresy.
I disagree.
I disagree too.
There's a lot funny with heresy.
We're going to jail.
I know this show is getting removed from all the platforms that I said we're going to be on. Remember that Mount Hermeneutics is free and available on all podcast platforms, including YouTube, simply by searching for Mount Hermeneutics. So go ahead and tap that in your little search place and hit the notification bell, hit the subscribe button. Do us a favor because it hooks us up. And if this is your first time with us, I am Andre. That's Matt. That's Brian. Fellas, what's happening?
Hey, Dre. Hey, Matt.
Matt, you're on mute.
Matt's muted.
Gentlemen.
Boomer.
And if it's your first time with us, Matt doesn't know how to use the mute button. And I can't even say mute. So, I mean, whatever.
What's going on, guys?
How's the weekend?
Right.
It's hot.
Oh, sorry about that.
It
Shut
is,
up.
Yeah.
It's like for real hot. It's not as hot as it's ever been.
Right.
But it's hotter than I ever want it to be.
It's kind of just normal summer hot, though. It's not like a particularly bad.
Yeah, no, I agree. And yet it sucks.
My AC hasn't blown up yet, so it's when it's really hot.
My brother just lost his.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
We're having a particularly cool summer.
Are you really?
Yeah, and like it was brisk this morning walking my dogs. I was like, what the? If I leave my sliding glass door open and the front door open and get that cross breeze, it's legitimately cold in the house. And I'm like, what's happening?
I like it when it's legitimately cold in my house.
Well, I mean, it's like that with no AC. So it's, this is definitely not late July.
When we were there for Memorial Day, it was too cold to go in the ocean.
Well, it's always too cold to go in the Pacific Ocean. It could be 108 degrees and the Pacific Ocean water is too cold.
Yeah, it's like 55.
Always.
Mm-hmm.
But what's great about that is it's 55 in the winter as well. So
it's just as tolerable in the winter as it is in the summertime.
Only you don't have that warm, when you get out, right?
Yeah.
So
which is to say not tolerable. Which is why surfers wear wetsuits.
Yes.
Lest they will perish.
Of hypothermia in the summertime.
Yep.
Which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Brian, how was your weekend?
How was my weekend? It was all right. I feel like I did something, but a lot's happened since then. I don't remember what I did.
Okay, yeah.
It was okay. I went to church.
Did you? Nice.
Whoa. Hey.
Yeah, me and a friend have been trying out churches.
There you go.
He just accepted Jesus as his savior.
Let's go.
And now we're trying to. I felt bad, kind of as his Sherpa into the all things biblical.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's a brand new Christian, and I got.
And he's like, "What do I do?" And you're like, "That's the cool part, kiddo. Nothing. You just sit at home and."
I'm like, I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out myself, but
that's funny.
But it has been interesting. Like he just kind of pitches churches, like let's try this one, and I'm like, should I tell him why that church is like it's a church I'd been to, didn't like it, had for like legitimate objective reasons, not just a matter of taste. Let's just go and I'll see what he says, and then we go to lunch, and then it's kind of fun hearing him sort of like reflect back to me the things I would have
Mhm.
said to him if he'd asked. But so anyway, we're gonna complete a tour of 12 churches and then just pick one
Yeah.
based on which
Which
one
one sucks the least?
or which one we think we can fix.
There you go.
If
I
that
think
sounds,
that's a really healthy approach.
I kind of thought like that would get me jeers and criticism not necessarily from you guys, but
I mean,
I,
listeners, I'd be curious to see what you guys
yeah,
think about that topic. That's probably a whole show
I,
to
I,
talk
I,
about what is the church and what should we do at church. And I mean,
yeah,
that's probably a show.
I fully expect someone to hear me say the church I'm going to go to is the one I can change to be profoundly arrogant and over the top. But that's okay. I'll defend it.
I mean, I think it is, you know, if you consider the church a church to be your responsibility as a Christian to be a part of that responsibility should be to provide constructive criticism, right?
Or
Not
even mentorship and guidance.
Mhm.
Because it sounds to me like it's a church that's already close, right? They just need to be shifted here or
Well,
there,
it depends. That's a fair point. Is
right?
Brian looking for the church with the weakest pastor that he can bully and take over and browbeat, or is he looking for one that's within spitting distance of what he thinks would be inappropriate? That's a fair point, Trey.
Well, you know how I like to bully and browbeat people.
I
Yeah,
mean,
absolutely. Well, I mean, we've known you for a long time.
Yeah.
yeah, I just think it's crazy to think that, people will go to a church, have an expectation of perfection, and then when it misses by some small margin, they just go, oh, that's it, going to a different church. It's like, so what, all of these people you're just going to leave to peril and you're not going to even try to offer any kind of guidance or help? That seems like a weird take. Now, if you
Yeah.
get tossed out on your ear because you've tried and they're like, we're tired of listening to this from you, it's time for you to hit the road. That's a different conversation, but at least
Yes.
you can
And
look in the
that's,
mirror and say, I tried.
yeah. And that's the thing that kind of makes me like reluctant to try because
Because you've been tossed out on your ear
I've had that happen so often. And it's like,
so often.
it's not like it's happened enough times that uh, like I know the amount of like emotional and spiritual investment it takes to get
To that
like
point.
involved in a
Yeah.
church
Yeah.
and then to have it kind of turn that way. Like it's just kind of like,
Would Paul give up that easy?
um, I, I don't think I've given up easily though.
I mean,
Is
Paul,
the
you
point.
haven't ended up in prison yet.
You're right. You're right. I need to step up. I need to
No,
step up my
no
game.
shipwrecks, no prison,
I've
no
I've
scourging.
I've
Scourging? Is it
I've
scourging?
I've
What's
never been hit with a rock.
You're right. I mean, I'm just saying, kind
now,
of a bitch.
now we're gonna get a message from Brian. All right, Matt, you asshole, come bail me out.
It wouldn't be the first time.
This one I'll do
Uh,
with a smile on my face. I'll be skipping into that precinct to post bail. I'll be like,
uh,
"Where's my brother in Christ?"
You release. You say Christ is Lord,
yeah.
and let my brother in Christ out, brother. R.I.P. Hulkster. R.I.P.
Uh,
Yeah. That's sad.
I didn't think it could happen, but I have Ozzy Osbourne fatigue. Because, man, I've obviously my social media feeds are heavily musically uh, inclined at this point in my life, and I can't turn on XM radio or anything without just never ending Ozzy. And I'm like, I liked his music, his touch, his place in the world of modern metal is undeniable. But I'm over it, man. No more
So,
tears.
uh, I was at
See
Comic
what I did
Con
there?
this weekend. I sure did. And I work security at Comic Con, which is the most non-violent group of people that need security.
And one of the best people watching gigs on the face of Earth.
Uh-oh.
Right in the middle of a good story too.
Little unstable internet.
Dre, yeah, you're back now. Well,
Your
kind of.
your face is frozen.
There,
There
there
you
you
are.
go.
Okay.
Try that again.
This is gonna be it's happened to me 3 times now since this conversation has started. So
It's only the first time it was
this
noticeable to
You need
us.
to you need to banish all the people with devices from your house.
yeah, I think it was noticeable because this time I was actually talking and
Oh,
not just like
not listening, and we
yeah.
froze.
Right, yeah. I'm like, I guess I'll come back and maybe I'll catch that conversation in the middle of it. But but there was one of the best costumes I saw actually was Ozzy.
Mm.
And what was crazy about it is he had a black halo. He walked by, I'm like, hey man, too soon. What are you doing? He's like, I know, brother.
Speaking of aggressive death worshipping Satanism, we're going to talk about Islam
we,
today, aren't we?
we certainly are.
What how did we get on that? It was relevant to something we were talking about last week
I don't
with
remember.
regard to the Epistle of Barnabas.
Yeah, I'd have to play the tape back. I don't
It was
remember
my
what we
idea.
said. It was.
It was my idea,
It
and
was
I don't remember. Yeah, it was. Was that a question or a affirmation?
an
I can.
affirmation. I
Okay.
realize I don't affirm you that often, so it was confusing to you.
Thank you. I've been meaning to talk to you about that. Um, but I don't remember what the reasoning was. I think we talked about how Christianity and politics.
Oh, it was right at the end, and we were talking about the Supreme Court thing about 501c3s
Right. You can
being able to talk
they
about politics.
yeah, they can endorse pastors can endorse candidates from the pulpit without
Hmm.
losing their tax exempt status,
Yeah.
which I think it's kind of uh, I mean it's a violation of the First Amendment that would even be that you would be able to curb a pastor's speech at all just because he's a Christian speaking from a church is seems to go against the whole point of the First Amendment. But
Well, only the
anyway,
Well,
problem is the
I
First
don't think
Amendment
it,
doesn't apply to organizations.
right, and it
It
also
applies to
doesn't
people.
apply. And also
corporations are
taxes,
people.
right? You're tax exempt, so keep it neutral
Well,
or
it's
lose that
it's it's
status, right?
codified in the 501c3 language. That's the trick. Is that because I have a 501c3 with my service dog organization,
Yeah.
and one of the paragraphs or sentences or whatever clauses in that tax code is that this organization will not be used for political purposes. Like
Right. Same with
straight
same
up
with like
Well,
Marines you can endorse a candidate as Andre Bibbs I can, but I can't do it
as a
representing the Marine Corps,
as
right?
yeah,
the
but those
senior
are
enlisted advisor to the freaking
Right.
commandant or something, right? Yeah.
well, yeah, because if you don't have the right to insert your personal opinion as that of the Marine Corps, so that makes sense. But as a church, you're not speaking on you're independent of the government. You're whatever you say is you're free to say it.
Yeah,
The
Are you
fact that
independent of the
it's
government if you are tax exempt?
yeah, that's I think that's the point you're missing, Brian, because that's like saying, you can't go on an airplane and start pretending to have a bomb, right? Like you could do that on the street, but you'll end up on a no-fly list because the right to fly is not an enumerated
okay.
amendment, a constitutional right, nor is being tax exempt a
Right.
constitutional right. So whenever you seek special privilege,
Okay,
then there's constraints that come with it.
so under like why are churches tax exempt?
Why?
Yeah.
I suppose I don't know how to answer that question in the way you're asking it. So why don't you state what you think the reason is?
Well, I mean the reason being that we recognize a freedom of religion and we don't want taxation to be an impediment to that. The whole point of the First Amendment, though, the reason you don't have Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of a religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or uh, infringing upon the freedom of expression or of peaceable assembly or the freedom of the press or to redress the government or to um, address the government for a redress of grievances. Like all of that is one amendment because it's not that religion is its own freedom and then expression is its own freedom. It's all freedom of conscience.
That's not why we give churches tax exemption.
Okay, then why?
They get tax exemption as a not-for-profit organization.
Okay.
And then a religious entity is one of the things that the IRS codified as organizations that automatically qualify for nonprofit status. So when you file for a nonprofit, there's like, which are you? And it's like, are you a veteran service organization? Are you a religious organization? Are you a public services organization, welfare? There's all of these boxes, and you have to qualify as one of those. And then there's like other. And if you don't fit in one of those categories, you have to say what you are, and then it has to go for review. So the decision was, if an organization doesn't turn a profit, it's not a corporation, it's not a for-profit business, then there's no good reason to tax it, because all you're doing is making it difficult for this thing to operate because it's not a revenue generating engine. Taxes were designed to be a revenue tool of the government, and they decided to tax companies and individuals that earn money, right? And then they said we need to set these other things off to the side. And then religious institutions were one of them. But there's a whole bunch of things. Like I said, a veteran service organization.
But the underlying principle of it is because taxation would be a form of regulation, and that would violate the First Amendment.
I don't agree with that, because a whole bunch of things then should qualify as non-taxable organizations.
I agree.
Newspapers shouldn't be taxed.
I 100% agree.
But the problem is they're for-profit companies, and so therefore they get taxed. Right?
But their tax status does not change based on what they say.
Yes, it does. That's what I'm trying to say. In the nonprofit language, you're precluded from having political.
But my point is, if you're a newspaper, if you're a for-profit newspaper, that the government doesn't say, you know what, we don't like what you're saying, so we don't want you to say that. So if you say that anymore, we're going to tax you for it, and we're going to tax you so hard that you can't make a profit. That would be a violation of the First Amendment, because it's trying to regulate their speech.
Sure. But not taxing them at all, right? You're saying if they went and said we're going to overtax
if they change the taxes,
right?
But the principle is that churches are tax exempt because they're religious, because they enjoy a special protection because they're practicing a religion. Taxation would be a form of regulation, so they're not supposed to. Anyway,
we're going off on a tangent, but my point is, if the church was to turn a profit, then that whole thing comes off the table, right? So these mega churches that are the ones that get scrutinized, when you hear like leftist social media things where they're like, they need to abolish tax exemption for churches, they're mainly pointing at these big mega churches that are clearly raking in millions of dollars, right? And they're saying we want to tax that because they're creating revenue, which I think is a whole different conversation, because most people would be offended to know how many millionaires are on the payroll of nonprofit organizations.
Right.
Yeah, I don't. I hate that. I find that distasteful. I don't know that the answer is legal, but the reason this led to Islam is, Islam is very much a political issue.
I agree.
Well, it's tied to immigration because we have it so deeply ingrained in us that churches aren't allowed to delve into politics.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really integrate the gospel into our outlook, into our worldview. It astonishes me that we are importing third world Muslims by the millions into the West, mostly in Europe, but also like Dearborn, Michigan is basically like it's an Islamic city.
Mm-hmm. Dearborn Abad.
Yeah. They sound the call for prayer 5 times a day. And like it just doesn't, it's not like it doesn't have an American flavor to it anymore. It's like a foreign country. You can't, there have been, umpteen many YouTube videos over the past few years where Christians will film themselves going to the Dearborn Islamic Festival and trying to evangelize, being met with violence.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of the people's knee-jerk reaction is, well, they're troublemakers. They know that
Right.
they're gonna provoke violence by going to this densely Muslim populated place where Islam is being celebrated and celebrating Christianity, um, which uh, but my answer to that is, so what? It's the United States of America. Um, you should be able to go to a gay pride parade and preach the gospel if you want. There's not a single square inch of public land in the United States of America where anybody shouldn't be free to go and say whatever they want, to preach whatever religion they want. They might not be popular, they might have ugly things said back to them, but they should not be they should not be the target of violence, and certainly not violence that the police turn a blind eye to, which often happens in Dearborn, and it kind of happens all over the place in the UK, and um, it is a growing problem, and it bothers me deeply that the church I went to this weekend, it was all about so much of it is about like how to cultivate your this godly personality trait, which is fine, that's good, but it's sort of Christian sermons are very often all about kind of like self-help and mood regulation without really any view to the big picture. Meanwhile, the face of our civilization is transforming because of these aggressive immigration policies, because of this push toward globalization and homogenization, toward multiculturalism. You're not allowed to say that this culture is better than that culture. That you're not allowed to prefer your own culture to a foreign culture without being called a bigot. And the church just kind of turns a blind eye to that. We feel safe and protected here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and where you guys are. But that's only a matter of time, and our children and grandchildren are going to damn us for not speaking out when we had the chance. But anyway, I've been monologuing here for a minute. Do you guys agree with that view of
Yeah, I
the
mean,
situation, or
yeah, I do.
disagree,
I
or
think the curious thing around it is, when you say the church, and as you were talking, my first response internal in my mind was, what's the church, right? Like, I know what you mean, but my point is like, from an organizational point of view, from a social presence point of view, from a political point of view, the church doesn't have a voice, right? Like, it's wild when we've talked about politics in the past, and like voting and voting trends, right? It's often discussed that the the Latin vote is wildly unrepresented by the two parties, right? The Democratic Party is the party of the minority, but they only really kind of cater to the Black community, and the female and the LGBT communities, right? And that seems to carry the day. And then the
Unless
Republican
it's an
Party,
immigration thing.
in specific instances, right?
Right.
But at the end of the day, you never really hear either party broadly championing the Latin culture or the Latin vote, right? And the Latin vote could sway every election that we ever have in every area for everything, right? If they all voted a certain way. Um, Similarly, the Christian vote could sway anything and everything, despite the fact that all the numbers show, considerable decline of Americans that identify as Christian, they're still like 80 north of 80% of the United States.
Are you sure it's that high?
Yeah, it's still 80. If
I
it's
thought it was in like the high 60s, low 70s.
last time I saw it, it was like low 80s. Like, okay,
Oh,
let's split the difference and call it 68, right? If it's 68, that's still a lot more than 50, right? So if
It's
the
still powerful
church
enough to sway things.
if
yeah.
the church was to actually, carry the day, it would, or attempt to carry the day. But then you get into preaching, politics from the pulpit and that kind of thing. And that's kind of the carryover that brought us into this conversation.
I just consulted the great oracle.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not doing this in the interest of
No,
arguing with your
yeah,
point
it's
exactly,
fine.
but it's relevant to the big picture.
Sure.
As of the most recent Pew Research Center Religious Landscape Study, fielded July 2023 to March 2024, about 62% of U.S. adults identify as Christian, down from 78% in 2007 and 71% in 2014, but relatively stable since around 2019.
Okay.
Protestants are 40%, Catholics 19, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. And the reason I bring that up is because if you research what is the fastest growing religion in the UK, in France, in Germany, in Europe in general, um, in Minnesota, in Michigan, Islam.
Mm-hmm.
But the fastest growing religion, like maybe kind of religiously relevant category, is nuns. Like the indigenous population of the West, the nuns being like not nuns like Catholic nuns, but nuns, NONESs. Like
Oh,
they have no religion.
yeah.
That
Yeah.
ask what is your religious preference? None.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
that means. That is growing. Like the people who believe in nothing,
Mm.
that's on the rise among the indigenous population. Meanwhile, the immigrants, they're predominantly Muslim, and they
Mhm.
are what Dre, you mentioned a statistic for how like Muslim fertility rates versus like Western indigenous
That was Matt,
fertility.
but
Yeah,
Oh, that
it
was
was me, and it was from a article that I'd read, and I wanted to say, and you can check with the Oracle, that I think it was upwards of 10% of a 10 birth rate
huh.
for Islam in the West. I think it was for Europe, not for the U.S. But there's this statistic that talks about the maintaining of a culture, and the number's three, right? Have a strong cultural basis, and
To
then
have a
like two,
growing population,
yeah,
you
and
need
then
a
like
birth.
2.2 or something around two is the break even. You've fallen into a space where you're giving up cultural
Yeah.
uh, territory or ground, and the U.S. is like 1.5. Um, so what that means is that the U.S. will decline just in people on its own
Yeah.
with no outside influence. But if you import a large number of people that have a materially higher birth rate, then that culture will begin to outpace the existing culture. And that's really simple straight line, arithmetic. It's not, this isn't, you know, it's not really even up for debate. This
Yeah,
isn't an arguable
it's not a
point.
conspiracy theory.
No,
so
It's
this
so
is,
just
that's
numbers.
interesting because in 2024 election, this is the first time that high school graduate males went Republican,
mhm,
right? So, and part of that has to do with Christian birth rate
mhm,
and family birth rates and Republican values within families, and where the other side has much more abortion, they have much more non-Christians, they have a lot more single mothers, they have a lot of those things. So I remember like a couple of podcasts were just saying like, well, I mean, let them abort it because the Republicans will have more babies and then we'll actually turn the culture. And it
mhm.
kind of, that statistic kind of showed with high school seniors that were able to vote in the 2024 election, and they overwhelmingly, for the first time in forever, went the Republican candidate.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the males though. But what about the females?
Well, I mean, that's another issue,
Well,
but
but Dre's point is
Well,
that was a subsect that swapped was the point that like
yeah,
and it had
that
to do with culture and birth rate.
yeah
right.
yeah I
But the problem is that
But the trad wife is also becoming popular again, right? So
mhm.
so I think there's swaths of women as well, young women that I mean, here
Women
we
are
go.
over young women are overcorrecting in a big way to embrace the trad wife concept, which is crazy. Not crazy bad. It's just I never thought I'd see it because we had gone so far off into the weeds in the other direction. Um,
but it's going to take a lot of correction to
yeah,
overcome
yeah.
the the millennials and Gen Z feminism. And I mean so many like there's so many women I knew like in college and dated and just wanted to put off having families, but then they got too old to have babies.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it's a pretty widespread story. And now now we can't, and we've got this whole gap where you don't have enough kids to fill college classrooms, so higher education is going to decline, which is probably a good thing anyway, considering what it's
Given the
become.
state of our higher education.
But my overall point is it's going to take a lot of correction to overcome that. Meanwhile, the incoming Muslim population is way ahead of us,
Mhm.
and they are much more fervent about their beliefs than we are about ours.
Yeah, that's for
Um,
sure.
and it's and the irony is like the modern leftist narrative is that well, we owe it to all of these third world Muslims to import them into our country because because of European colonialism ruined their ruined their countries, and that's why they're impoverished and why they have a low quality of life. Um, except European colonialism was a direct response to and mitigation against Islamic expansion. Like if you go back to the seventh century, like all of North Africa, um, Asia Minor, most of the Middle East, going all the way to India, all of Eastern Europe was these were highly significant Christian population centers like Alexandria, Egypt, and Antioch, Syria. I'm drawing a blank right now, but it's basic history. Like
Mhm.
all of those regions were Christian until the seventh century when Islam happened, and it spread by conquest. They kept trying to they conquered Spain. They got as far up to Tours, France, before they were repelled by Charles Martel. They kept trying to break through Constantinople. Um, there is a huge Arab slave trade. Like Muslim pirates would just raid the coast of the Mediterranean and carry off millions of slaves.
So, Brian and I were both reading the same book, Sword and Scimitar. Is that what it was called,
Yeah,
Brian?
by
Yeah.
Raymond
Yeah.
Ibrahim.
Fascinating book. There was a blurb in that, and I didn't note it. I'm listening to it on audiobook. I was traveling last week, and unfortunately for this kind of a book, I can't dog ear pages and highlight because it's audiobook and you
Yeah,
sit driving around
but by the
but
way, I wish
You
I could
can on
just
Audible. You
can
can
you?
you can digitally earmark, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I need to go back then. But there was a thing in there where um I forget the reference. So, to the listeners, I can't reference it beyond it was in this book. He posits that the entirety of what we know as Viking pillage and enslaving
oh
of people
yeah
was to sell them to Muslims.
Yeah.
That the Muslims brought the idea of piracy to the Norse or of slavery, and that they were basically the OGs of slavery.
Well, they had slavery, but like,
Not in
but
a not in a commercialized
right.
sense.
They didn't have an international slave trade
Right.
until Muslims gave them the idea.
Yeah.
And the main motivation for Islamic expansion, what like yeah, they told them yeah, Allah's happy about it. You have to spread Islam, but also you get all the booty and all of the sex slaves, and they fetishize Western women. Like
Hmm.
they have this, like they would just go on and on about the white skinned, blonde haired, blue eyed Byzantine women, and that they were just these sex crazed,
Hmm.
um, promiscuous, sex machines that wanted the Islamic men to go and ravish them, and they were doing them a favor. And it sounds like I'm making this up. This
I,
sounds like
I, if I hadn't read it, also, I'd be sitting here
right.
with my arms crossed, going, "The hell are you talking about, Brian?" But
Yeah.
I mean, I read the same book, and I was like, "What?" And in fact, Brian will think this. He'll probably laugh when I say this to the listeners. I was messaging Brian while I was listening to it, and I said, "Have you fact checked any of this or checked any of this guy's reference points?" And Brian said, "Not in the book specifically, but this guy's not a new entity to me, and I've checked his other stuff, and he's very, consistently historically accurate and sound." So I was like, because this book sounds like it sounds like the Epistle of Barnabas. Like some dude had an axe to grind and was off just writing a book about how terrible these dirty Muslims were.
Yeah. But
That's
if
my point, to tie it back to last week's episode.
but for some modern practical examples, like if you're not familiar with this, and speaking to the listeners, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this. You might be. Look up Cologne, Germany, New Year's Eve, and Google will do the rest. New Year's Eve 2015 into 2016, there were like about 1,000 concerted sexual assault, gang rapes,
Yeah.
like by African and Middle Eastern migrants in Cologne, Germany, where they would huddle, they'd single some woman out, and they would all kind of huddle around her and then take turns gang raping her. We probably have to bleep that out so we don't get
It's not
uh
for kids.
banned on. Yeah, but YouTube has weird standards. Like you have to say unalived instead
That's
of
for shorts. And they do that because of the listener content. We're fine.
okay.
Right.
Our language
So
is fine.
yeah, they gang rape these women, and this is consistent with Islamic teaching. They think of the way they think of Western women, because they don't walk around in beekeeper suits unaccompanied by men. They think that means they're asking for it. That means they just want to be ravished by a strong, virile Muslim man. They think Muslim
Because
men
of the
think
angels.
Muslim men think of going into Western countries and availing themselves of our women the way that we think of going to Vegas. Like it's just a place to kind of cut loose and debauch yourself, because that's the norm there. And so it's okay if you like, it's really
We're
kind
not
of there.
supposed to gang rape the women on the strip.
Well, you can pay them. I believe that's legal in Nevada, but which
And
is the
those statistics hold up. Like if you just look at all the like Scandinavian issues that they were having, uh the sexual assaults skyrocketed
Yeah, it's like a
after
10x.
they people always talk about Scandinavia as being like this model place where there's no crime, right? It's got the model government, it's got the until you start creating a safety net for an influx of too many people and blending too many cultures, and this cultural influx, as we've been pointing out, is doing a
Yeah.
little
You know who
sexual
doesn't have
assaulting.
this problem in Europe?
Hungary and
Poland.
Poland.
Poland. Yeah.
Yeah, because they don't go along with the EU immigration
Homie don't
plan.
play that in Poland. Like
But
it's
the
like some
the
old school Vlad the Impaler stuff going on.
the irony of the leftist narrative about how like we owe it to Muslim countries to give them this safe haven, to invite them in. European colonialism really began after the Ottomans took Constantinople in 1453, and they closed off the spice road, so we couldn't trade with the East, and so that led Columbus to try to
Which is the
discover a new
point
route.
of Columbus, by the way,
Yeah.
Right.
listeners.
It's so great to bring that up to people that haven't tied those points together, where they're like, I go, I got a question for you. Why did Columbus find America? Well, because he was, no, no, no. But why did he go? In
Why was
1492,
he funded to do
why
it in
did
the
he
first
sail
place?
the ocean blue? Right? Why did a queen from another country give him a bunch of money and ships and crew and whatnot, right? And it was to find another path to the Silk Road because it was closed by uh, by terrorists, so to speak.
Yeah, and
Um,
every
for
major
anybody for
event.
anybody that has listened to our show, there's an artistic rendition of a certain song as the show starts, and the lyrics that go with the music that you hear are from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, right?
Yeah,
Like that second sentence matters because the reference is to the U.S. engagement against the Barbary pirates.
in Tripoli, Libya, where the the Berbers were. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Like the Marine Corps' one of its very first missions in the world was to put down Islamic terrorism in the high seas.
yeah, the Barbary pirates would kidnap, would take over American ships, enslave the men, and this was pretty much their routine for any European or Western ship they found. I think it was it Jefferson and Adams or Jefferson and Franklin? I can't remember who, but they asked the Libyan ambassador, like, well, what gives you guys the right to take American ships? We haven't done anything to you. We haven't provoked you. And his answer was, well, that's our right as Muslims because you're a Christian nation. Um,
Very
so
well.
so we
Stand
are
by.
it's our right to enslave you and take tribute from you until you convert to Islam. And so we wound up paying, like, I think it was what, like 15% of our GDP as tribute to Barbary pirates to keep them from enslaving our people. But finally we decided, well, it'd be cheaper to rebuild our Navy and Marine Corps and just
It'd be
go kill
cheaper to have a
them.
Marine Corps.
Yeah.
You're
Right.
welcome.
And
So
for those that don't know, the Marine Corps is the only branch where the non-commissioned officers carry swords in certain dress uniforms. Now there are any of the soldiers out there, yes, cavalry wear swords, blah blah blah. Only cavalry. In the Marine Corps, all non-commissioned officers are authorized
As an
swords.
NCO sword.
And the reason that's unique is because the NCOs, the non-commissioned officers, and the officers have different swords. The officer's sword was given to a Marine officer named Presley O'Bannon at the conclusion of this Barbary pirate war, and it's called the Mameluke sword. I think the guy's name was Mameluke that gave it to him, if I'm not mistaken. My officer history is not as good, but
if I recall, and we're probably both wildly wrong, but I think Mameluke was the word for slave, which became
no
a
way.
yeah,
Their sword is called the slave sword.
hold on, give me a second. That they had a class of slaves that became like an elite warrior class in this part of the world, and so the sword was named for this warrior class that we fought with to overthrow the Berbers, also known as the Barbary pirates. Barbary comes from Berber, and that's the but anyway, that's neither here nor there. But it to your point, this war it's kind of memorialized in this sword that we carry today. But I think you're looking that
I
up
am.
right
I'm
now.
asking. I'm asking.
I,
I'm having Jamie look this up.
yeah. But while you're looking that up, that exchange of sending the Marines to Tripoli to fight out the Barbary pirates. That's kind of emblematic of the entire European um, imperial enterprise. Because the Ottoman Turks blocked trade to the east, we had it, and because Arab Muslim pirates were attacking our ships, European powers had to set up colonies in all the places where they wanted to trade with in order to project power, in order to stop the Muslim pirates. Um, so this whole, European colonization trend, period that is condemned by leftists and that they think we need to atone for by letting Muslims plunder us. Well, no, Muslims provoked that. Every major event in Western history was in some way or another a response to or a reaction to Islamic expansion.
Yeah.
Um, like the Renaissance happened because of the fall of Constantinople. All of the intellectuals and the Eastern Orthodox priests, they had to flee west. They brought a lot of their text with them. They brought a lot of their scriptures with them that led to the Textus Receptus that Erasmus created and that the King James Bible was based on.
My
But
man.
the influx of literature from the East created the demand for more reading materials, which led to the creation of the printing press, which led to the Enlightenment. Um, but that's just one example. But the bottom line is that we have always been at war with Islam. We've as long as Islam has existed, we have never not been at war with them, and it has always been a defensive war. The Crusades were to go and take territory back
Mhm.
that Muslims had taken from Christians and to protect Christian pilgrims on their way to the Holy Land. It was not to go and conquer the world in the name of Christ. It wasn't to spread Christianity by the sword. It was to protect against Islam being spread by the sword. And so the idea that so for today, for us to just open the gates to our invaders and give them our plunder, give them our riches and our women and our territory, and to shout down anyone who's a bigot who doesn't agree with it, it's appalling. It's like it betrays a level of spiritual and historical illiteracy that is I, I don't have words for it. I'm exasperated by it.
That doesn't happen very often. Um, so two things. One, you're pretty close on that. It's not even worth editing what you said about that. Essentially, they were slaves, slaves that turned into a specific band of warriors. But that's that's a pretty wild thing that the sword essentially means, slave warrior, which, is not, it's not off the mark for the Marine Corps.
All Marines are slave warriors, so
Right.
I,
Um,
I usually frame my enlistment as having sold myself into slavery for 5 years.
yeah, for
yeah,
sure,
yeah,
definitely.
yeah. So guys, what do you, I mean, I don't think I mean, Dre, you haven't disagreed either. I don't think that any of the three of us are really that far apart on our broad view of this. But what do we do? And I guess my question is really this more so. So if we were to bring this into I mean, we could talk about what to do militarily, what to do as a secular government, right? There's a pathway, there's options, things we could do. Um, there's things that we could do as a church, as a body of Christendom, right? Here's a question that just came to me in the moment. How or does this fit in to what we see as end times prophecy, right?
Um,
Because let me flesh my question a little bit more just to, get my idea out. The idea of Christ's return not happening until the good news has been spread fully, right?
or
There's
until
some
the fullness of the Gentiles comes in.
right. There's some version of that, depending on how you interpret that language, right? It would seem that just using America as a as a bellwether, um, with Christianity declining in the U.S. and the West, and Islam increasing, it doesn't seem like we're going in the right direction, right? Seems like the apocalypse is further away than it was. Unless, then, are we in a tribulation period? Is this part of the bad times? Is this in that book? I heard that there's an opinion of, they called it the apocalypse of the 700s or something like that, and that there was a belief that the Islamic incursion was God ordained because of failures of the church, which I've never heard that theory before. That's interesting.
Except for me.
So like there's a big question there, but like,
Yeah.
what do we think, Drake? I mean, I'm throwing that question out like cold, and this is kind of a wild topic, but what do you think?
I think that, in speaking for America, not the
Sure.
rest of the Western world, I I think that we have a habit of overcorrecting on almost everything that we do, and this is me thinking in real time. Um, as I think about cities like Dearborn or Minneapolis, or the new front runner for the mayor of New York, right? I think it's going to be one of those fuck around and find out. I do. I think that they're going to go too far. I think that some sort of martial law thing will be entered into cities, and I think that people and our liberal ideas, and I don't mean that as left and right politics, I mean that as classic liberalism, where of freedom, we're just not going to allow that to happen. Now, it could be painful for a little while. It could, trend in a spot that's uncomfortable, but
It may go
the
further and get worse before it gets better, you're
yeah,
saying?
but
Yeah.
I just think that the whole trend about, you know, Christianity being horrible. I think I think there it, if you're a secular person and you think that Christianity is horrible, hold my beer, right? Like, so
And I would, I don't want to,
I don't think we're gonna stand for it.
yeah,
I think it could get ugly, but I think that we will become more secular and have rules of actual no religion at all before we start engaging in like a Sharia law type.
yeah. And to your question about the end times, Matt, it could be the thing that provokes the great persecution. Um, there might just be like a government crackdown on all religion. So the infractions of they might decide that they're sick of putting up with religious freedom from these Muslims, so they're just going to crack down on all of it. And they're kind of like what Sam Harris and the new atheism movement did after 9/11. Because of 9/11, they decided all religion was bad, and like Christians are no better or no more rational than the people who flew the planes into the Twin Towers.
Right.
There that's a very likely outcome. It may be that this has no bearing on the end times, that the end times are still another 10,000 years away.
Right.
But we're about to lose our lampstand, so to speak, as the church in the United States and the West, and God's gonna start over with a remnant in China or Africa or India or somewhere. No, I'm not, like,
No,
I'm
that's
dead serious.
I think that's as plausible as anything, right? Like I know any I don't want to revisit our dispensationalist conversation, right? But there's a whole lot of you know, uh America's the new Zion people that would be, horrified to hear you, offer that as a possibility.
Well, and one of the things that bugs me, like when I talk about the historical illiteracy that has led to this state of affairs, I don't just mean like radical leftists in the EU who are importing these people, or the AOC and the Squad. I'm talking about Christians, because when I sound the alarm to Christians about how, like, we could, like, Christianity is dying in the West. Whatever replaces us, we're not going to like it. It's going to be It's going to be horrific, whether it's hard secularism, and I think I've made the distinction on here before between soft secularism, which is good and the most Christian form of government there is, and hard secularism, which is what we tend toward right now. I
There's
could
a joke
flesh.
in there about like cable TV and hotels in the 80s, but I'll let that go.
Thank you. Um, Soft secularism is just like freedom of religion. Christianity is, there's a separation between church and state.
Damn Spice Channel.
Christianity spreads by persuasion and voluntary conversion. Hard secularism is that the wall of separation is to protect the public from religion, is to
Right.
keep religion contained. Religion is bad, and it's that sort of sneering disdain for religion in general that I think has led to this, where they think that Muslims are Muslim in the same sense that many nominal Christians are Christian. Like they think it doesn't really matter what your religion is, just be a good person, and they're all basically the same, and we can all kind of live together in this multicultural, homogenized global community, which is nonsense. They just don't understand human nature, and it's their arrogant disdain for religion that has led to them not taking the threat of Islam seriously. But really, it's the Christians that bug me when I sound the alarm about these things, and they kind of fall back. Oh, well, God will never let that happen, and God, the gates of hell will not overcome the church. Well, you're totally abusing that verse.
Mhm.
Gates are defensive,
Mhm.
presupposes you're on the offense.
Right.
If we fight, we win. The problem is you're a bunch
We're
of
not-
lazy cowards and you
We're
won't
not
fight.
fighting. Yeah. Yeah.
And you think God's going to do it for you, and you're ignoring what happened to most of the Christian world in the Middle Ages. Because I promise you, all those people in North Africa and the Middle East, they thought God was going to just miracle the Muslims away, but they all got conquered and forced to convert.
Yeah.
And so, sorry to interrupt you, Matt. Dre, I was.
No, that's a good point, but I think we won't go hard secular. I think we'll go hardcore Christian. I think that
It does kind of feel like we're rotating that way. The
and
point
to
of you
me-
bringing up the kids and like they're being like heavily red pilled, it seems like.
because if we have a common thread between races, just like it was in the late 1800s, early 1900s, turn of the century for America, what united American people was the church.
Mhm.
What helped black slaves was the Bible. But there's tons of pastors and preachers in the black community, and I think that once their people start being assaulted, morally and physically by non-whites, I think it's going to be like, oh, and we kind of went through that in the early 90s with, Asians and blacks in Southern California. Uh, the whole Rodney King riot was
Mhm.
spurred on by Koreans versus blacks. And, if you want to ask me about that later, we can get into it. But I
Rooftop
think
Koreans still hold a place in 90s lore.
yeah, and so and we talk about the influx of Latinos. Well, they're Christians, right? So if
Yep.
you start talking about states like Texas and Florida and
Mm-hmm.
California, I see all these profiles
Well, the
of
South, right?
the South period,
Yeah.
like God first, God first. And I think if there's one thing that can probably, curb some racism and bring some unity, I think it's Jesus. And if there's a common enemy for anything or issue, it usually gangs up in the American spirit, gangs up on that common issue. Um, I think we will overcorrect and God will be the focal point. Then we'll go back to fighting over what type of Jesusness we want to get into. But once we have a common enemy that threatens freedom and prosperity,
I
we're gonna go that way.
I like your take. I want you to be right.
I don't
You
think
know?
you are.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know
I
that he
wish
is.
I,
I
I
do
wish you
agree
were.
with the point though that we are, you know, so in schools, right? The whole point that Dre brought up about, the young male 18 to 25 or whatever the demo is voting, Republican for the first time. And it was a big swing, by the way. It wasn't like a point. It was a material swing. There's a lot of evidence that um, you know, kids are saying retard again, as an example. And if I've just offended anybody by saying that word, deal with it. But the kids are back to thinking it's funny to say again. Um,
We talked about it before with counterculture, right?
yeah,
So all the blue hair professors that were uber liberal from, the Gen X generation, you know, we always or the boomers that were super, straight edge, and then all the kids like, screw you,
everything
I'll
was
do what
everything was
I'll
gay and
yeah, I'll
everything's
do what I want.
retarded and
I'll smoke and party. But now, since it's swung the other way, youngsters fight the power. They
mhm.
fight the power. So if leftism is the power, kids will rebel against that.
The thing is, though, like that's like, and I find those to be encouraging development as well. Um, but becoming conservative, being opposing the left, that's not the same thing as a resurgence of Christianity.
That's true.
Now, there is a kind of a backlash to leftism where people are sort of giving Christianity another look. My concern for that is that they're going to go into churches and they're going to find this that I don't think I'm alone in this, but I find church deeply dissatisfying. I find it to be tremendously shallow. They're simply not equipping Christians to understand why it's true. That Christians, by and large, don't know how to make the case for Christianity, especially not in the face of opposition. Now, there might be some people who are rediscovering Christianity kind of as a tribal identity, as a cultural fixture, but that's not the same thing as becoming a follower of Jesus Christ. Um, and with the rapid encroachment of Islam, I think one of two things is going to happen. One of two things. I think there are two very likely outcomes to this, neither of which are good. The first is like, yeah, I think that there probably will be a reaction against Islam where and I think like there's a just to kind of put this in practical terms, have you guys heard about this town in Texas, that this Muslim
Hmm.
town they're trying to
Yep.
build? Is called Epic City.
Right.
Stands
Hmm.
for the East Plano Islamic Center,
Hmm.
and they're buying like, what is it, like 40,000 acres they're buying up. That can't be right. That sounds huge. I don't know, but it's a sizable chunk of land, and they want to build an a Muslim only city. Of course, on paper, they're going to say it's available to anybody and everybody, but they're basically going to only sell land or sell houses to Muslims, only sell business licenses to Muslims. They're on paper it'll be open to everybody. In practice, it's going to be Muslim only. Um, I don't think we should stop them by law. I think we should let them do that. And I think the only way to, I could be wrong. I'm not a lawyer. All of this stuff is going to be heavily litigated. But I happen to think that if they leverage the law against it, well, I think in America, people should be allowed to do that if they want, as ugly as it is. Um, on Matt Walsh today, he talked about how there's this whites only town that they're building in Arkansas, and he talked about how the media kind of poo-pooed on it because it's racist. Yet not too long ago, a group of black women bought a town to make a black only town, and the media, they celebrated it. Um, I happen to think you should be able to do any of that if you want, in America. You don't have to. I think that if you want to live a certain way and choose who you associate with, I think you should be free to do that. I think the only way that we crack down on Epic City and other growing Islamic conclaves like that is by fundamentally compromising who we are as a country and violating our own constitutional principles. And I think that would be a terrible outcome. The other likely outcome, if we don't do that, is that Islam continues unopposed and becomes a dominant cultural force, which also fundamentally changes who we are. I referenced that scene from Dune when I was talking about this today. I think there's this scene where Muad'Dib has taken the water of life and he is foreseeing all possible futures, and they all lead to his death and defeat by the Harkonnens. But he sees one narrow way through to 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 survive and win in the end. It's this one razor thin way. And I think that's the same situation here. That narrow way through is for the church to rediscover itself, to revitalize its mission, to reform and become the active, functional body of Christ, which starts with teaching Christians how to make the case for Christianity, to advance genuine, sincere, rational belief in the truth of the resurrection and in Jesus' identity as the Messiah, and to commence with genuine discipleship where we actively participate in the divine nature and advance God's kingdom on earth. We could in America, where our rights are protected, if we're doing that and we have a sizable growing Muslim population right on our doorstep, that is a prime mission field. Um, it's a good thing if we can do that. But it's again, it's a very narrow, razor thin tightrope that we walk, either side of which leads to the destruction of our identity as the United States of America and our way of life. So, and a genuine revitalization of the church is the only way forward.
My my instinct is to push back on that and say, no, that's not true.
Okay.
But I think I would only be nitpicking about the only way, right? Like the idea that, whether it's Dune or it's, Doctor Strange in the Avengers, and, there's one possible outcome of millions that he watched. Um, I think there's probably a couple of other ways, but I'm not going to sit here and theorize a way to be right just to say that the revitalization of the church is not the best possible path forward. Right? Because I want that also to be the correct way forward, because regardless of there being another outcome, that is the best outcome. And it would be, the ideal version of whatever, success or
Well, let me
goodness looks
amend
like.
that a little bit. Maybe you'll agree with this. Um, another possible alternative is that we adopt this gung-ho tribal zeal for Christianity, but it's really just culture deep. It's not real. It's more
Sure.
about it's more about tribal and cultural identity than genuine faith in Jesus Christ and advancing the kingdom of God, which really just kind of it just traps us in the same cycle that we're in
Yeah.
already.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
And we just tread water, and we bring about the same kinds of situations that we're talking about right now. And
I think that's fair. If any of the listeners have seen Kingdom of Heaven, I think there's quite a bit of that, what you just described in that movie, right? There was quite a few,
which is pure fiction. I think we all agree,
of course, but
but
the
it's a good
reality is
illustration.
that there was a bunch of these supposed Christian crusaders that were. It was pretty hard to identify them as Christians aside from the big crosses that were emblazoned on their, and that they were carrying the standards and whatever. But their behavior, their hearts, their everything they did felt pretty far from Christianity,
Yeah.
right?
But that is just in the movie. In real life, those are based on real people.
Sure.
Those people were legit hardcore, like on fire for Jesus Christ Christians
Well,
who,
I would contend that most were, and the ones that we know of. But I mean, I don't know that you could say every single member of, every armed individual in those armies was the same, right? There were some guys that were there for
sure,
money. There were some guys that were there for power and
but
greed and
for the most part, going on crusade, like people, like wealthy noblemen lost their fortune doing that, and they
Mhm.
knew full well they were going to.
Sure.
So I mean, yeah, there's always a certain percentage of people who do it for the plunder because they've got nothing to lose. But the vast majority of people, I think, they might have been misguided and being led by the Pope to believe that dying in battle automatically meant God took you into heaven. That's obviously that's bad theology, but they did genuinely, overall, there was a genuine like zeal to protect their fellow Christians from Muslim aggression that motivated that.
I think I know where the concern is for we called it Christian tribalism, but in my mind, it has to start somewhere. And if the only reason you even look into Christ is because you want to join some battle versus some common enemy, it has to be something, right? If you don't know anything about Christianity or you hate it and you watch our show and it gets you to open up a Bible and read it, well then we are successful. I think the American way is to have the freedom of religion. And the only way to stop an incursion of something that isn't compatible with our ideals is to put it on display. I mean,
I think that's a fair point, Dre. I think I think Brian's position is consistent,
yes.
and it's also aligned to his opinions. I'm just gonna say this to kind of make a point and be funny. Superman, right? Like the Superman movie had to be perfect for him to like it. And if it doesn't do all of the right things and doesn't check all of the boxes, it's not good enough. And
That's
and
not
what
fair.
no, I think it is fair, and I'm
That's
not saying to be nasty. I'm saying
well,
you're hang on, Brian. Let me make my point, and then you can disagree. But I think what, and this is more what Dre's saying, but it's juxtaposed against what you said, right? So Brian, you're suggesting that if the American Christian revival isn't completely done the right way for the right reasons, that it'll be hollow. And I'm just simplifying your statement. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I'm just trying to broadly paint the brush. Dre's countering and saying baby steps. If they just are willing to wear the banner and hold the Bible and read it, that's a hell of a lot better than not. And a lot of them will get further down the road given the opportunity is, but they have to take the first step. And the first step is the hard step.
And the real teachers and mentors need to be what Brian's talking about. They need
Yeah,
to
I think
yeah,
that's the
I don't.
right.
point.
Yeah,
So
I don't think Dre and I are in disagreement.
I don't think so either. But it's kind of like a lot of
But
our bills in politics, right?
well, but I want to object to that. Like, I think that's like this idea that I'm, if it's not absolutely perfect to my specifications, it's not good enough. Well, that's bullshit. I reject that.
Okay.
Okay.
Um,
Noted. Take it under advisement.
that isn't true of my review of the Superman movie, and it's not true of my evaluation of the church. And frankly, that's an unfair characterization of my position, and it's and
Really?
it's it is it's unfairly dismissive. You're
Oh, I
basically,
wasn't being dismissive. I get it. I get your position, and I'm not laying it out as a caricature. That's so don't if you're looking at it as an attack I wasn't being dismissive of you. I was saying that your position is that there are a handful of these things that are non-negotiables,
Yeah, that's true.
and there's a few of them. It's more than two. There's a lot of things that have to happen for this to be correct.
Yeah, and there
That's all I was saying.
and I can show my work, and there are, yeah,
That's
but
all I was saying. I didn't say you were
okay.
wrong.
Well, I apologize if I mistook
No,
you.
that's cool. That's
It
why
sounded like,
I was trying to flesh it out because on one side there's your position is like there's a whole bunch of non-negotiables and they're real and these aren't made up. But Brian, you want all of the non-negotiables. That's why they're called non-negotiables adhered to, right? And then there's my version of Superman, right? Like my take of Superman or what Dre was saying, where it's like check two of the boxes and then let's worry about the other boxes as we're in flight. Like we'll get there eventually, but we have to start somewhere and rather have them all, let's just get a couple and then like let's move out.
For example, a lot of conservatives want to ban, transition surgeries for people, right? A lot of people disagree with that, but I think we can agree on children,
Right.
right? So if we start someplace, you know, we can move forward as we go. I think the enemy of good is often perfect, where I think a lot of people just in general life are afraid to start something because they're not experts in the field, or I'm not worthy of giving this speech to this audience because I'm not an expert on every single facet of the topic, or a delay of us starting our show because none of us are pastors, right? Like I think that we need to move forward with what's good.
I don't want to go to the gym because I'm fat.
Exactly. I don't, I'll start my diet on Monday.
so what
So
what
I'm going
is
to
it,
go ahead and
what does this mean in practical terms the for the state of the church and the looming Islamic encroachment? Like
the
what it
encroachment is the closest alligator to the boat. So the encroachment needs to be stopped. To be honest with you, I I don't care how it's stopped because the only way to move forward in a society where Christianity would be allowed and to be strong is to remove obstacles from that. I think
Well, I do think we should stop importing them by the millions.
sure it's good. That's a good start.
But as far as I mean, and just to clarify my position, it's not, I don't want to stop importing them just because they bear the cultural label of Muslim. I want to stop it because Islam itself is hostile to our values. They believe, and if this is unfamiliar to you, if this doesn't sound familiar to you, um, there's all kinds of materials online, all kinds of YouTube. I would recommend Raymond Ibrahim, who we've talked about. Watch Podcast of the Lotus Eaters, which is a British podcast on British politics. There's tons more out there that I could talk about, but the fact of the matter is Islam is fundamentally hostile to our values. They believe that they're coming here sent by Allah to turn us to Islam, and their stated plan, their imams say this in their mosques on a weekly basis. And to further illustrate my point, if you live in a major city with a mosque and I recommend you go there sometime as a guest. Um, look on their free literature table. You'll find a book called Milestones by I forgot his first name, something Qutb, Qutb. This is a they all have this book. They all endorse it. look up milestones and Ketubism, and you'll see what I'm talking about. They genuinely, sincerely believe they are going to reach a certain population level where they can take over governments, local governments, state governments, and then the federal government. You're seeing it happen in Minneapolis and Dearborn and New York City, even. It's happening in the UK and London. It's happening all over the West, where this plan is unfolding, where they are going to impose Islam on our country. That's why I don't want to import more of them. As for the ones who are already here, if the church can get it together, that's a prime mission field. And even without like seeing them as a matter of as a missionary endeavor, just having Muslims in like engaging in public discourse in this country, if the church can just figure itself out and become confident enough in our own beliefs in in the Bible, and if we can integrate that into our worldview and we can engage in public discourse with these people, well, now we've changed the conversation in our country. We're having a conversation
That's fair.
about the true face of God,
Yeah.
and in a way that matters, that matters for public policy, for social values, for our way of life. It's not just religion. And that is something that I'm grateful to Islam for, is that they're kind of forcing us to kind of to stand up and fight and toughen ourselves and decide who we really are as a people and as Christians, and whether we're going to just bury our heads in the sand and engage in more therapeutic moral deism while the world goes to hell around us, or if we're going to take it back, if we're going to actually be faithful to Jesus Christ and do the mission he's appointed to us.
Yeah. Yeah. Dre, to your point of you don't care how we do it. I I hear you. I struggle with it, right? Because my gut is to agree with you, right? Then there's, the way Brian couched it. So like the thing with the Epic City in Texas, Texas has got a bill out right now that they're trying to pass to outlaw Islam in the state of Texas.
I'm not on board with that.
Right. And that's
so when I say I don't care, that's not.
I didn't know that.
Right.
Yeah, I wasn't taking you going down that path, but that's problematic,
what I'm saying
right?
Is I don't care how people oppose it by saying they're Christians.
Okay. That's fair.
Or I think that because to me it sounds a lot like communism coming into our country.
It kind of is. I mean, it is.
It is, which like makes me think like, hey, so we have all these politicians and a major party that opposes everything that Christianity stands for, yet they allow Islam in and champion it when it does not, it's not compatible with socialism or communism. And I think that they are on the same mentality as me, where what we have to do first is topple Christianity and topple this Constitution, this American ideal, to create this new ideal that we want. And the strongest arm to do that is to import as many anti-America as it is, whether it's Islam or whether it's socialism. It doesn't matter. So to me, all that stuff has to go, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's weird because like you mentioned communism, and there was a point in time when it was cool to be anti-communist,
right?
And then we to the point of over-rotating, right? We over-rotated, then it was like cool to be communist.
It's never been cool to be communist.
I mean, social media would disagree with you. Like, I agree with you.
You got a bunch of morons on the internet who think it's cool to be communist,
but again,
which is where cool comes from.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, we're old and gray bearded. Like we don't know what cool is.
Dre's doesn't have gray beard.
I do have spots.
my point was agreeing with Dre. It's crazy that, there was a time when like you were ostracized and, you were unfit for like public office. If the whispers of communism even circled your, were linked to you. Like there was a whole theme with the whole Oppenheimer, right?
Because it's so subversive.
Right.
To our way.
Hello, right?
But the thing is, look at how suppressing it has turned out.
That's true. That's a good point. That's a fair point.
I think. What do you mean by that?
The black market effect.
Yeah, you turned it in, you drove it underground. It didn't go away. You just had people doing it in secret and having their secret clubs, and kind of it quietly infiltrated academia and our institutions. And now we're at the point where you can campaign openly as a socialist and not get laughed out of public life. But
it's crazy.
I don't think that's a product of being pushed underground.
If it had been discussed openly, if it was like, oh, you're a communist, let's hear about it. Let's hear your great plan for how communism is going to save us all. And it's the same thing with Islam. They did
it. It's called I Have a Dream speech.
Yeah.
Disavow.
I'm just going to be neutral.
Oh, Brian, I put your footnote in our show notes starting last week.
What was the footnote?
That unless you openly agree, you never endorse anything that Dre or I say.
Okay.
I did. I put it in the footnotes.
Okay. Cool. All right. I can't. Yeah. Sounds good. Yeah. But
yeah, everybody, we were talking about on a past episode that Brian always feels the need to, with Dre or I make an offhanded comment that he feels the need to, fully disabuse the idea. And I was like, you don't have to. We'll just make a show note. Then you can.
Silence is tacit endorsement.
Not anymore. Not for you. You've got legalese. You've got fine print that absolves you of it.
I'm not entirely confident that's gonna be understood by everybody.
We can add it to Dre's copy at the open of the show.
We can do it. I can do it. P.S. Unless Brian explicitly agrees, he disavows everything that I just said.
Yeah, so Islam, we don't like it. We're not fans of it.
It's lousy, no good.
It's and by the way, I know how controversial that is. Like we're gonna get called Islamophobes and bigots and
I'm
stuff.
not afraid of it. I don't like it.
I'm not afraid of that either, but it's such a, first of all, anybody who uses the term Islamophobe in earnest, I automatically don't respect anything you say after that. And really anybody who does the whatever a phobe thing, like the implication that, if you don't agree wholesale with whatever my identity label is, the only possible explanation is that you're crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That's such a, pardon my language, chicken shit way to bypass debate and argumentation. It is utterly cowardly and contemptible. And
I have two thoughts to agree with your point. One, we don't call anybody Christianophobes, which maybe we should, if we want to play their same stupid game.
I'm gonna start doing it.
But I don't. I want to have the debate. I invite the debate. If you think Christianity is something bad, let me make the case for it. I'm not going to call you crazy and shut down challenge and debate, because I know I can win that challenge and debate.
That's fair.
Anybody who calls you an Islamophobe or a transphobe or a homophobe because you don't agree with their ideology, well, they're basically admitting I can't win the argument on its merits, so I'm going to shout you down and try to stigmatize you for even disagreeing with me.
It's a foolish concept, and it's weird because we don't do it in other parts of our life. I hate, with a capital H, hard R, cucumbers.
Me too.
Like I can't stand them. They're an abomination on mankind. They
agree.
were not on the ark. They were left by Nephilim. Like, they're disgusting, horrible things. I'm not a cucumberophobe. I'm not afraid of them. I refuse to eat them, and no one can make me eat them. Like, it's it's a weird take to say that because you don't agree with a specific philosophy.
But a cucumber is not an ideology, Matt.
I mean, that's the point.
I think it is. I
Yeah.
mean, it is an ideology. Have you ever been to one of those resorts that
They
put the
put
cucumbers
cucumber
in
in
the
the
water,
water and
and I'm trying
on
to
your
drink water like
eyes.
a
It's a
Yeah.
cult.
cucumber melon, Gatorade flavor, right? Like you can't get away from it.
Yeah,
It's
So
that's
a
we're
terrible.
trend.
we're all agreed that we hate cucumbers and Islam.
I don't hate cucumbers, but
Well, you're not
I
one of
mean,
us.
I guess not. I, I think my point is that I'm like a reverse phobe of Islam. I think that they should make their cities. I think that they should import all of their ideas. I think all of their ideas should be front and center. I think that anybody who is running for office and wants to import that stuff should shout it from the rooftops. I happen to still believe in the American ideal. I
That
still believe that in the square in the public forum of ideas that the American idea will win out.
that's
And
on brand for you. That's consistent. I dig that.
so
I don't agree with you, but I
the-
agree with
bring
I
it
dig your
because to
point.
me the fear is that they're going to grow in population and then all of them are going to want to become this, and because of all the cultural changes and difference that America will just become a Muslim nation. No fucking way. The reason why
Well,
that stuff happens is because those people don't have a thing called the Constitution, where they're able to fight back from it, where they get imprisoned for speaking up, or the government suppresses ideas. So the more that we have more ideas out there on the table, let's run it.
Well,
Let's
that's
get them.
actually aligned to what Brian said about communism and not pushing it underground. It's kind of funny because
Correct.
but just to be clear, you said you didn't think that was the problem with communism, but you just said that for
Well,
Islam.
no, I think as a point of fact, I don't think that it was pushed underground. Just because it
Okay.
was shouted down,
Okay.
I don't think it was pushed underground. I think it
Okay.
was still allowed. They still had communist parties. The Communist Party didn't get banned.
Yeah, but you couldn't like have jobs and stuff if you were part of it.
Well, that's because society told you to fuck out of here,
Okay.
right?
That's maybe,
Like
yeah, no, that's a fair
so.
point.
So to
Okay.
me, that's fair game. That's fair game. If a small society, if I can't go to Dearborn, Michigan, guess what city I'm not going to,
Right.
right? It's kind of like if in 2025, if I were to see a sign that says no coloreds, you best believe I will not walk in, right? Because whatever it is that they sell,
You're not
I
trying
can
to buy
go
it.
next door
Right.
to get the same thing, or I can go on Amazon
Right.
and get the same thing, or I can and.
Right.
So to me, to ban something because you're afraid that it will win the day is, to quote a very wise man, is a chicken shit way out. It just is. Stand up and fight.
the
Stand up
thing
and fight.
is, there's this thing in Islam called taqiyya,
Uh-huh.
which are you familiar with this?
Nope. Go
That's
ahead.
those real spicy chips. I love those things.
Taqiyya is a principle by which you are allowed to lie. It to that the stated version of it is that it picture all of Islam is framed as a war between the ummah, the community of believers worldwide, and the kafirs. That's us, the unbelievers, the infidels. Since they're in a war, they're allowed to lie in order to preserve themselves against persecution and to conceal their true intent. And so there's an kind of like a low level passive stage of jihad where Muslims are a minority in a country. They are to obey the laws and comply with society and conform and not cause trouble. Um, but there's also a verse in the Quran that says not to make friends with Jews and Christians. Um, be friendly with them when it's to your advantage, but don't entrust yourself to them. Non-Muslims are the worst of creatures. Muslims are the best of creatures. But basically, like you can never have a true friendship with a non-Muslim. as their numbers grow and they grow in influence and they start taking political power, then they can start imposing Sharia law. Um, and then when their numbers are enough and they have enough political power, then they can just impose it by force, and then they can give give non-Muslims the opportunity to either convert to Islam or be killed, unless you are one of the people of the book, in which case you have the option to become what's called a dhimmi, which is like a second class citizen, and you have to pay the jizya tax, which,
Oh, okay. I,
well,
I-
I mean, this is all pretty much
I'm
established
not
Islamic law.
I'm not disputing that. What I'm pushing back is that the U.S. Constitution is not going to let that happen.
Yeah, and I
And I
I
think
I I
there's
hope
enough
you're right.
boogalooers out there that like fucking bring it. Who's going to enforce Sharia law? Cops? The
Well,
military? The Marines?
I mean,
Who's enforcing this nonsense?
having a constitution only works if, I mean, it's just a piece of paper if the country, if it's not being enforced. And if and and we see that even without Islam. If we had a constitution, but that didn't stop the Biden administration from interfering with what was allowed on social media and YouTube. I mean, we
And
that
and it's starting to correct. I mean, now we have Sydney Sweeney in fascist commercials.
it's true. Well, we're both trying to predict the future.
Right?
So I think I'm right. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah,
I don't know the future, but I
I
I do know that merely having a constitution is not itself.
well, at no point do I think that is the end all be all, but I do think that it is kind of bred into our DNA to have freedom. Whether whether we're gonna push back at some point.
I
We,
think
we,
if we're so just pacified with Netflix and DoorDash and just the comforts of modern life, and we're just too bovine and docile to care about our freedoms, to care about principle. I don't think it's at all unrealistic that.
I don't. And I maybe a few years ago I might have agreed with that. But then I worked in a Marine unit with all under 25-year-old young men and women. Um, I think the ethos still exists. I think that the youth still want this freedom, and I think that they don't want things infringing on it. And I believe that these kids, the kids are all right. Is what I'm saying. We cringe because we can see writing on the wall, but just like any other young person, sometimes you got to learn the hard way. And and I think that they're gonna have the lessons, and they're gonna fight through them. I
It is
I
worth
have full
noting that even in current year, the especially in current year, the kinds of people who join the Marine Corps are not at all representative of their generation.
sure,
So,
That's why they're the few and the proud.
you're right.
but and
Funny side story about the Marine Corps. I came across a really funny clip. I shared it with you guys. The two Marines, and the one has like perpetual frog voice.
Yeah,
He
from
still talks like this.
drill instructing.
Yeah, and I sent it to my brothers, and John goes, "That's my senior drill instructor."
Like literally, that's
Yeah,
him.
that's
yeah.
hilarious. That's so good. If you're listening to this and you're not laughing, you're wrong. That's funny. That's
Yeah,
funny stuff right there.
It's a
I
small core.
yeah.
no, I think
I'm glad to hear you say that though, Dre. You've said it before in other contexts,
right.
but I'm glad to hear you holding to that, because it feels a little bit better. I can, my personal anecdotes with my young adult children are that my daughter is married to a very um conservative young man, who, the funny thing was he was pretty blindly MAGA when I met him. And he now questions openly everything, which I love. I'd like to take a little credit for that. But he'll come to me and like, hey, what do you think about this? And I'm like, and then we'll talk it through. And he's like, and then he's becoming critical thinker. My daughter said to me the other day that, she just had her first baby, and she was like, I was worried I was not going to be a good mom. She's like, now it's all I think about. She told me that she wants to make sourdough bread, have babies, wear a sundress, and embrace the patriarchy. So, Dre's point about, this trad wife thing is certainly coming around. It really is. Um, and, I do think there's some hope there. We'll have to, see, like Brian made the comment, we're yelling at each other, trying to predict the future. And I think it's going to be terrible. I don't think it's going to be that bad. Like, I mean, the reality is there's problems out there. There's certainly a concern. Um, and, somewhere, between raising the alarm and being honest and real about the risks and the challenges, I think is where we need to move forward towards what that looks like. Who knows?
I was even encouraged working at Comic-Con this weekend. If there's a liberal crowd, if there's a leftist crowd walking around, it's there, right?
Yeah.
And
As
all
someone who grew up on comic
yeah,
books and
the
now hates them, I can attest to that.
the volunteers that I was close to, that I was kind of helping at, whatever doors or whatever, they had their comments, but we had so much common ground that these young people were taking pictures of me and saying, "Hey, this is the guy that was my security. I got a nice little selfie."
They're just trying to get street cred. Look, it's a black guy.
Well, it's like it was an Asian queer lady, but it's funny because she mentioned that, then she's like, "This is my boyfriend," and I was like, "I don't get you kids, but okay." So, but no, the conversations and watching people parent their kids as they're walking, but just observing people for an entire 4 days, 16 hours a day. I'm like, yeah, they're different, but they're not.
Right.
And it's all super encouraging, and I just have a different perspective on this melting pot of America, and I think that people will want to do what they want to do, and anything that infringes on that is going to be pushed back against hardcore, to include Christianity, unfortunately, and definitely Islam. And that's why I said, yeah, if you hate Christianity, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. If you think Trump was going to bring The Handmaid's Tale to life, like hold on to your butts.
Right. So, and that's why I think, and that's a good point with, they're subversive and they're allowed to lie, but the truth will come out, and the truth shall set you free.
Um, and if you're not familiar with what we're talking about with regard to Islam, I want to recommend again Raymond Ibrahim's YouTube channel.
It's
It's
Ibrahim with an I, by the way.
Ibrahim with an I, just like the regular spelling of Abraham, but with an I. David Wood's channel. Um, he's a Christian apologist. His YouTube channel is Apologetics Roadshow. It's formerly Act 17 Apologetics. Um, the Apostate Prophet. He's a former Muslim who became an atheist, calls himself Apostate Prophet. Now he's an Eastern Orthodox Christian. There's a YouTube channel called Islam Critiqued. I don't know his religious background, but he's a Christian. I think he's a Christian. He's a white guy. He's pretty knowledgeable about Islam. There's a few more I could think of, but that's
Brian, if you want to throw this together, and I'll drop them in the show notes.
yeah, definitely.
Cool.
And if I think of anything else, I'll put it in there. But yeah, did we solve Islam, guys?
Probably not, but hopefully we at least
Yeah,
brought a point of view to it.
and I think we probably allowed some people to, it shined a light on it, so they'll go look into it for themselves. And if, you know, look, I don't care if there's a community of Muslims. I don't. And I don't care if somebody wants to worship Allah. There's things out there that's that gets worshipped every day that, that's only thing I can do is encourage someone to see truth. And if they don't want to follow that advice or example or what have you, then okay, we're Americans.
Yeah,
And
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 and I
and to
do
me, that's the strong point.
and I do want to make it clear, like none of us here are doing this show to say if you're a Muslim, stop being Muslim. Obviously, we don't agree with Islam, and you should stop being Muslim. But it's more about Islam is about imposing itself on non-Muslims. That's what we take issue with. If you're not imposing Islam on non-Muslims and you have no intention of it, we got no problem with you. Your fellow Muslims probably will, but that's between you and them. Um, but that's the issue is not that we object to Muslims being Muslims and keeping their Islam among themselves. It's the whole imposing it on us that we take issue with. And I do want to add that if Islam does take over the West, we deserved it. Because
Should have known better.
for us to just stand by and let it happen, having the benefit of being the greatest country on earth, having the most, perfect constitution and form of government and freedoms to practice Christianity and to investigate the truth for ourselves and to live how we please and to let it and to squander it, to let it just slip from our fingers out of apathy and complacency and laziness. We would deserve it. But
Yeah, I think that this the structure of uh, America is the ideal is so strong that we really can blow it off and it still stands. And we keep blowing it off, and I know that it's a scary thing, but I don't think it'll just go away because, like I said, it's ingrained in our DNA, and we will adjust. We'll adjust. And maybe the outcome isn't something that you and I like later, but we only have 20 years left on this earth, right?
Easy.
Maybe
not
40.
me. No.
So,
I
it's
got
gonna
it.
be
I
up.
got at least another 70.
It's gonna be up to Susie, man. So what influence are you giving her today? And that's our job.
Tomorrow she fasts.
Start pouring
Hey,
bottles down the sink.
yeah. Hey, I want to make a correction. I think I said earlier that Texas was attempting to pass an anti-Islam bill. That's not true. What happened is Governor Abbott and the Attorney General came out and said they made a declaration that Sharia law is not allowed in Texas, and that nor will a city that is focused on Sharia law. But there's been no actual legislation. So if I think I misrepresented that earlier.
Yeah, I think we had a similar law to that proposed in Oklahoma a few years ago, maybe like a decade ago.
Well,
I,
this one was
I
based around Epic.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think it was struck down on First Amendment grounds.
yeah.
Um, because it's making a law with respect to the establishment of a religion and restricting their free exercise thereof. At least
Right, but
that was
Sharia
the
is different because Sharia is a set of laws predicated on a religion, which is different.
well, yeah, but I'm just saying that's what the argument was,
Yeah,
and the law was to outlaw Sharia law.
got it.
And I think I could be misremembering the history, but I absolutely remember that was the objection to it,
Yeah,
which
that makes sense.
so anyway,
All right, boys.
All right.
good talk.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm optimistic, man. I just am. And
Uh,
I really think the the more craziness gets let out and put into public and shine the light on, then good. I think we will push back. I feel the Superman symbol of hope in my Comic-Con 2025 friendship
Yeah,
bracelet that
but
I got from a
you're gonna get the Green Lantern though.
total stranger.
I gotta say though, there's a lot of craziness happening in Europe right now, and so many people are turning a blind eye to it. The media is denying that it's even happening. I'll bet most people, you tell them about Cologne, Germany, New Year's Eve, they will give you blank stares and not know what you're talking about because these things aren't covered, and the media is in such militant denial that it's even happening, because we have an ideology that says that blinds us to it. And so I mean, I do think that's a factor, but anyway, that's,
I think that Europe will erupt in some sort of internal strife, civil war thing before we do. And uh, yeah,
I almost want to say I hope so, but then I
of
realize
course, of
what
course, I don't
that,
hope so. I just think that it will happen.
I
I think
hope
that they're
that we
moving.
learn,
Yeah,
I hope we learn the lesson from their example instead of from our own bad experience. That's what I hope. But I know it's going to suck for them, and I don't look forward to that.
it is gonna suck, and we're gonna have to lend aid. Like we're gonna have to help them out of it. So
That's what we're for.
We'll
it
send
is what we're
Marines.
for. Bruh.
Hurrah. So that's what we're for.
That is what we're for. Where is it? America's 911.
They might not
We're
need
the
us.
world's 911.
The Knights Templar are back, so there's that.
Okay.
I think it might start in Ireland, but that's a topic
Ireland
for
is
another.
certainly pushing back.
It's for another. That's a topic for another show, I think.
Yep.
So with that, I'm just gonna say, hey, you should stay enlightened and stay curious, even if it's topics that make your tummy hurt, like Islam and Islamophobia. And stay blessed, brothers and sisters. Good night.